Hello and welcome to Career Prep. My name is Matt Studebaker. I'm a lecturer at the Woodbury School of Business at Utah Valley University. And today we're going to talk about career preparation. So I'm going to first start this off by saying, have you ever been asked the following question? What do you want to be when you grow up? And most of you probably have said yes. And then the second question I want to ask is, how old were you when you were asked this question? Because typically the answer that I get is most of you were kids, probably like grade school or even preschool for some people. In my opinion, this is the worst career-related question you can ask a child. Obviously, there's worse questions you can ask a child, but even let alone an adult, I don't think that this is a great question. Why? Well, let's look at some reasons why I view this as a very poor way to orient yourself when you pursue success in your career. We're not going to watch this video. It's a great video by Micro about not following your passions. So one book that was written that I think is a great way to actually dive into this is by Simon Sinek, and it's called Start With Why. A little bit about Simon Sinek. He's an influential speaker. He's had top-rated TED Talks on YouTube, but also he's written 5 other books. But this is obviously the one that's made the fame. But in the book, he talks about the golden circle, and where you have why, how, and what, with why in the center moving up to what. Why is the purpose? Okay, what's your cause? What you believe in? What do you value? What's your true passion? Okay, passion. When I say true passion versus passion is just like I'm passionate about brownies, whereas like true passion, like I'm passionate about my kids or like my wife, my family, like things that are like never going to change. If anything, they're going to get stronger. The how, the process, okay, this is like specific actions you took to make the why realization. And then the what is the result. And what did you do? What was your result of your why, the proof essentially. So if we take the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? We're actually starting with what, as opposed to starting with why, with what Simon Sinek talks about in the book. And I'm not necessarily promoting Simon Sinek here. I'm just saying the book is a great orientation for where we should be focusing in a career discussion. So let's change it up. Instead of starting with why, we're going to start with what, because that's the question. What do you want to be with when you grow up? So you're going to choose your profession or career because you're going to say, I want to be an astronaut or I want to be a professor or whatever, right? So what is your passion? What are you good at? What are you comfortable with? And then the how, so it's the process. These could be similar, okay, to starting with why. And so kind of getting sandwiched in there. Specific actions you took to make the what a realization, so the why realization. And then the why ends up being leftovers, okay? The result is the leftovers. Why? Well, let's look at an example. Now, I'm going to pick on social workers here. Not that I don't value social workers. My wife is a social worker, okay? And she actually helped me put these slides together, and she agrees with what I put in here. Doesn't mean that all will, but I'm just picking one industry, okay? So we're just going to throw it in here just because my wife and I have experience with this, okay? So what is your passion? Well, so we're focusing on the what, okay? So what? I want to be a social worker. What's your passion? Helping people. That's great. It's a good passion. I don't have a problem with that. What are you good at? Well, you good at communication or maybe empathy. These are obviously positive things that you want to have in a social work field. What are you comfortable with? Well, I like a controlled or regulated environment. Great. Lots of red tape as a social worker, especially if you work for the government. Don't like sales or customers. Okay. Don't have to deal with that. May have to deal with customers if you have them in practice, but if you want to work for a firm, don't have to worry about it. Not good at numbers or computers. Great. Don't need them. So we go to the process, the how. So these are specific actions to help make the what a realization. So you realize you're going to need to get some internships at nonprofit or organizations, government or independent firms, etc. You're going to need a bachelor's degree. You don't need it, but we'll just say in this scenario, you're going to need a bachelor's degree, and then you want to get your master's, so that way you can get certified as a CSW, or if you wanted to, an LCSW, licensed certified social worker. And then in the state of Utah, it depends on each state what the CSW stands for or what you have to get done. But let's say you want to get your CSW, so you're going to need a master's, and it's the master's degree before. You're going to need about 2,000 hours, you're going to need 2,000 hours of experience, and then you're going to practice independently non-clinical, okay? So now we get to the why. This is why it is leftovers. Okay. So if we take the average school debt for a bachelor's degree in the United States, it's roughly around 29,000. Okay. These slides are a semester or two older. Okay. It may have changed, maybe higher now. Okay. It's probably higher. But like roughly about $29,000. The average school debt for a master's degree is roughly 58 grand. Okay. Now, some sites I did find a master's for social work as low as 30,000, maybe lower. I couldn't find them, probably out there. So I'm sure there's always somebody trying to one up. All right. So the national average debt for a social worker who graduates with a master's degree is as high as 87,000 and as low as 60,000. If we couple in that 30,000 is 58,000 for the master's. Okay. So if we look at the two different prices here, to pay off the loan in 10 years, for the higher amount, the national average of 87,000, that would at a monthly payment of $1,000 if we want to do it 10 years, which is twice as fast. Okay, because the student loans are typically on a 20-year different or loan. Okay, and so that's $1,000 a month. And so if you take if you pay that off in the 10 years, that's an additional $33,000 you got to pay in interest over those 10 years. If you want to take 20 years and you want to downgrade that monthly payment, because $1,000 is a mouthful to pay for a student loan, and you want to downgrade it to 664, which is still a mouthful. Now that's going to be $72,000 in interest you get to pay for that degree, or on top of the 87,000. Okay, so you're paying $150,000 for that. Those two degrees. Now, let's say if you have the cheaper amount at the 60,000 because you found a cheaper school to go to. Obviously, could be cheaper bachelor's degrees. I'm just using the national average here. To pay this loan off in 10 years, if you're paying at the higher amount, 690, that means you're paying $22,000 roughly in interest. If you take 20 years and lower it to $458 a month, that's $49,000 in interest you're paying over that time. Sucks, doesn't it? Again, focusing on the leftovers part. So let's assume the national average is the debt that you have at 87 grand for your master's in social work. Okay. If we're looking at ONET is the government, it's done by the Department of Labor Statistics. And so they compile labor numbers from across the United States and they compile them into this nice brief where you can look at all this kind of information. So you can actually look up what social workers make. And so I have here, so it looks like, okay, you see that they have bachelor's degrees. 69% people have that. So master's degrees, only 26% have that. So that's good. So it should put you in a more competitive field if you want to get a master's. So with a master's to get better work. And then we look at the pay. So the low range, Utah's red. So national average is blue. Utah's typically lower, but Utah typically has a higher growth and so more job opportunities in most places. So they're a bit lower, about 10, 15% lower than the national average. So 21,400 for Utah for the low, that's starting, but 36,000 is the medium salary, and then 69,000 is the high. So let's just assume that you are making somewhere in between the medium and the high. Okay, let's just say you got 53,000. Okay, so you got some experience. You also have your master's. Maybe you're even practicing your own clinic. Okay, so you're in the middle of the medium to high here. So at 53,170. So seems fair. But then let's look at this. Okay, so for a family of two. Okay, so just you and a spouse. Okay, or a partner. Your salary, if you're the only salary earner in that home, is $53,170. Your monthly gross would be about $4,400. That's pre-taxes. The net, I'm guessing here, would be roughly about $3,400. Okay, I just picked a percentage and did it based off what the government takes out of my check. And then if you're paying on the 10-year loan, because you don't want to pay your student loans over 20 years, because you don't want to pay $150,000 for your student loans, then you're paying $1,000 there. A one-bedroom rent in Salt Lake County is about $800 a month, and then $140 roughly for energy bill. That's gas, electric, all that kind of crap, trash, water. That might be conservative. And then a phone bill of about $150 between you and another phone. Groceries, $450. That might be a little high, but a lot of people eat out, so that could be where that's making that up. And maybe you got a car payment. Most people do. And so if you don't, that's going to help this. But if you do, And you can see where this is going to come in. So your monthly total expenses is about $2,962. Your net gain for the month is $449. But wait, there's more if you call now, right? So I'm not including into this figure medical insurance, dental, car, home insurance. I'm not including taxes, because as soon as you're out of school, you are going to get hammered on taxes. Buckle up, okay? Unless you got kids or you own a business, they're going to come after you. You will owe money. Vacations, entertainment, internet, okay? Kids, okay, kids is a huge cost. I have 3 of them, I know, okay? There's plenty more on here that's not in here. How are you going to afford whatever why you had? Because that 449 is gone once I start incorporating some of these other things. You don't have any money, okay? Unless somebody else in your house works, you're not making any money, okay? You might be going in the red with these kinds of expenses, okay? You can't fund your why. What if your why is to take care of your parents? You can't even take care of yourself. How are you going to take care of your parents? You want to buy a nice house? You can't buy a nice house. You're barely surviving on a 1-bedroom rent, okay? How are you going to buy a house? You got to have a down payment. If you don't want to pay PMI, which is foreclosure insurance, when you buy your house, you got to put 20% down. And usually the cheapest house I can see is in the $300,000 range. You got 60 grand saved up to do that, because if you don't, you got to pay $150 a month in PMI insurance, which sucks, okay? And so this is kind of why I tell people, I'm like, that's the problem with this question, is that people will choose it based off something that they're comfortable with or something they're passionate about, but that it can't provide the why that they're looking for, okay? So you can't afford that under this kind of mentality. So let's change it and start with why. Why am I doing what I'm doing? What's the goal, the purpose for it? I want to be able to provide. So this is me. So I want to provide for my family. Great. I want to be debt free. Awesome. I want my spouse to have the option to stay home if she wants to. Okay. I want to take care of my parents and my in-laws. They both don't have retirement, so they don't have anything going for them unless we're the ones taking care of them. And really, none of my siblings except for one is able to do that. And I want to be able to stay home full time as a father and a husband to my family, and just operate a business part time. Okay. So specific actions to make this a why realization. So I'm going to work full time to go through college, pay for college, which I did. I graduated with a bachelor's, and then I got my MBA, and I shopped around for my MBA, got a good MBA at Western Governors University, and I graduated like less than $15,000 in college debt. But I was able to pay it off because through my work, they paid for most of it, and then I just paid the remainder. I was able to acquire a business building job that I operate on the web, so there's very little overhead. I attain mentorship for future personal business, and then I read self-education books through leadership, conferences, TED Talks, etc., to educate myself. So here's the result. Okay, so I'm a university professor or lecturer. I'm not a professor. I'm a university lecturer. I don't have a PhD, and I'm never going to get a PhD because you don't need it in business. I'm co-owner of a web-based business with my wife. She's technically my boss. Okay, we joke about it. And then why this is not leftovers. I don't have debt. Okay, I don't have any debt. I have a savings. Okay, I actually have money in my savings account. How many people have that, right? And then all of this crap, just by that singular thing, all this crap that you see right here, doesn't apply to me. All the debt that you see here doesn't apply to me. It's all gone. Okay. I don't know if you ever looked at the debt clock, but student loan debt is the second highest debt next to home mortgages, which is sad, right? It tells you that, like, and this is where I hear this question the most, is in college, people asking students like, well, what do you want to be when you graduate? Like they're just recycling this garbage. And this is why students have $1.6 trillion in student loan debts, because they're getting degrees that they can't actually make money in, and that they can't provide for their families in. They can't provide for themselves, okay? This is $600 billion more than credit card debts. That's astounding how high that is, okay? This is what happens when you grow up hearing, what do you want to be when you grow up, okay? This is why college fails students in this regard, because it's not telling them what you want to be. Why are you even here, okay? What's the goal? Okay, this is where, and like I said, don't get me started. I say here, I need to just watch out here. And even like starting with what? It leads to poor marriages, because ultimately, if your finances are struggling, that is the #1 catalyst for divorce. Okay, obviously there's other characteristics, but 9 out of 10 times divorce starts, or where they look back to where it all started going wrong, it's because of finances. Okay, and so if you're starting with what, it's not going to fund that purpose. And so this is why when I meet with people, I do not say, what do you want to be when you graduate or want to be when you grow up? And I hate it when people ask my kids that. I don't get mad at them. They just don't know any better. But like, I make sure I talk to my kids after. I'm like, it's not important about what you want to do, but why you're doing it. And so in the end, the solution to the question, what do you want to be when you grow up, is this: we need to ask a different question. What lifestyle do you want to live, and is your income going to provide it? This is starting with the why and moving outwards towards the what. Again, what lifestyle do you want to live, and is your income going to provide it? Because if you realize, like, I want this lifestyle, but point A isn't going to get me there, then I need to change point A to point B or point C or whatever I got to do. So the end goal is that I get to where my why originally is. And so that's it for this video, and we'll see